Hey everybody, Collin Daniels here from the band Red Treasure. Yeah, I want to make a video this morning because I just feel like something became kind of clear to me. It's been rolling around in my head for a while, and so I kind of wanted to get it out before it left my mind. And it came from, I know where it started. We had an incredible night last night recording segments for episodes 8 and what it turns out to be episode 9, because there was so much good stuff, or so much stuff that was fun to do for the Red Treasure Rising podcast, which if you haven't heard it, if you're interested, it's on Apple's podcast app. You just search Red Treasure Rising, and there's also, I post links to it on the web all the time, so you can go look through our Instagram or Facebook or whatever. I'll try to put it in the comments here. Forget which platform I'm on sometimes. But yeah, I wanted to say something because I think what sort of became clear to me, because I made this video last week that was called Giving Up the Idea of Making It. And I don't want to be misleading. Like I'm a musician. I want to be successful. I want everybody to be successful at what they want to do. So I'm not saying that people shouldn't be successful or they should set their sights low. I'm not saying that at all. But my point in that video was that people tend, especially creative people, like if they want to be a singer or a painter or an actor or a filmmaker or something like that, they tend to, not everyone, but a lot of people tend to have this standard of like success, and they set like an internal, in their own mind, deadline that nobody gave them, and they just came up with it on their own. And if they don't reach a certain crazy level of professional and financial success at their art form by that deadline that they gave themselves, they quit, or they feel like they should quit. And so my point is, like, let go of making it in the sense of like not allowing yourself to enjoy what you're doing. You know, do what you love and just keep doing it until you don't love it anymore. That was kind of my point in that video. So we got to talking last night on the podcast with Scott, Gabe and my friends, Scott and Mike, about that sort of like, because Mike had left a comment, because I posted my Give Up the Idea of Making It video that I put on YouTube. I posted a link to it on Facebook, and Mike commented, and he said one of his issues was just finding the time to prioritize art in general when you have a busy life and your life isn't set up around art. It's set up around your family, the job that pays your bills, holiday events you have to go to, organizations you belong to, whatever, that are important to you. And so that led into this discussion. And then that led me to this thing this morning, because I realized that, in terms of that whole making it thing, I actually have felt all along that, pretty much since some sort of early age, I don't know, in my 20s, I think, that I want to be I feel a calling to be some kind of teacher or guide or coach or a mentor or something to people. But what I was afraid of was, I don't want to be one of these people who hasn't figured out how to do anything, but then they make a career out of telling other people how to figure out doing things, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to be a life coach that's never accomplished anything, because I don't think I'll be a very good life coach. And that's not to say that you can't teach things where someone is better at it than you. In other words, I think you could be a gifted piano player, and you could be a teacher, and you could have a prodigy kid who's actually they're gonna be a way better piano player than you, I guess. And I just hate the whole better than comparing artists thing. But anyway, let's just use it for now. I think it's fully possible that someone who's like a less talented, quote unquote, piano player could teach a more, quote unquote, more talented piano player and actually be a very effective teacher. So I don't think you have to be like the world. Like, it's not like, Beyonce is the only person that should be allowed to teach singing, and Jay-Z is the only person that should be allowed to teach, and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg are the only 3 people that should be allowed to teach rap. I'm not saying that, but I do feel like, I think there was a part of me that I didn't want to be a bullshit artist. I didn't want to make a living as a bullshit artist. I didn't want to teach things that I hadn't done. I didn't want to try to mentor people in terms of, to do things that I hadn't done. You know, I didn't want to give people advice that I hadn't taken or that I'd taken and it hadn't worked for me and then try to make money off that. There was just something inauthentic about that repulsed me, and I just never wanted to do that. So once I settled on being a rock musician, my whole thinking was I want to become a rich and famous rock star, and then I will somehow work the whole teaching, mentoring, coaching thing into the mix. But if you guys have been following what's been going on the Red Treasure podcast and the Instagram and the YouTube now, I mean, it's the very early stages, but like this, like the words of wisdom thing that I'm sharing is coming out, you know? I'm getting a lot of people on Instagram telling us like, we want more videos of your music, which is awesome. And I need to do that. We're gonna do that. We're gonna have more music stuff on there because we're a band and we should have music videos on there. But it is very exciting, and the people that have liked and commented on these types of videos where I'm just talking about the process of being an artist and everything, I really appreciate that because I like talking about this, but not just to hear my own self speak. I do like hearing my own self speak. I'm not gonna lie, I've got the gift of gab, but I only want to do this. I only want to put stuff up if it's helping someone, if it's doing some kind of service for somebody. And I think you can be really arrogant in this world and think, oh, I'm really smart and I want to share my wisdom that I've got, but it's really all about you, like you're just trying to look smart or, you know, important or something. And I don't want to be like that, but I just want to give people value. I want to, you know, I am an older person. I'm not 22 anymore, and I've accumulated some wisdom. So I mean, I want to share it in a way that helps people. But so I had this idea for a long time, like I'll become a rich and famous rock star, and then I will, you know, teach some of what I've learned, or I'll share some words of wisdom, because then I'll have a platform and I will not be a bullshit artist. I won't be a fake. I won't be a fraud, because I'll be able to say, look, do what I've done, and you know, you'll be successful too. You'll become a huge rock star, whatever you want to become a huge rock star at. And so now that I've started doing these videos, even though I'm not rich and famous, I'm like, well, wait, I told myself I didn't want to be a bullshit artist. Is that what I'm doing? Am I just becoming a bullshit artist? Am I coming online in YouTube and Instagram and telling people, here's what you should do to, you know, live your dreams, you should be successful? And it's like, well, but I'm not, you know, I'm not whatever, like Green Day, Maroon 5, Beyonce. I'm not, you know, Taylor Swift. I'm not any of these people. Ariana Grande. I don't have that kind of following. I don't have that kind of money that I make from my music. So what do I have to teach people? What do I have to say? And after the conversation on the podcast last night with Mike and Scott, I really feel like I figured, like this morning I woke up and I was like, oh, I know what I've done that it might really be helpful for people. And I also know a reason that I need to make these videos, to not just help other people, but to keep helping myself, to keep teaching what I've learned back to myself, so I keep doing the right things and I keep doing what I've learned. So my arm is getting so tired, I've got to buy a tripod. Oh my God, let me see if I can switch arms. Oh, Lord. Oh. All right, I want to make sure I don't get the finger in there. All right, okay. Sorry about that. So, yeah, so where was I before I rested my arm? Yeah, oh yes, I mean, I feel like I woke up this morning and a lot of what I've been thinking about for years actually coalesced into this like major light bulb that's sort of always been there, but now it's like clear. I really have some clarity around it, which is that what I have done that I think I can be proud of, healthily proud of, not an arrogant prick proud of, but just like, I'm proud that I did this, is that for the most part, if I look back at my life, I'm 48 years old, I've done almost everything I want to do in my life. Now, there's an asterisk on that. The asterisk is I haven't necessarily gotten the end results of everything that I've wanted, because I do want to be a rich and famous rock star. So, and I'm not today. You know, here it is, April of 2019, and I'm not one. But I've been, and the term rock star is like, that sounds a little arrogant, but I mean, when I say rock star, I just mean somebody who writes rock music, you know, writes their own music, gets up and performs, you know, so that's when I say rock star, that's what I mean. So the thing is, I've been a rock star since 2004, which is now going on 15 years. I've been a rock star. And that doesn't mean I've played to 20,000 people. It doesn't mean I've played Madison Square Garden. It doesn't mean I've played the Greek Theater in Los Angeles or the Staples Center. It doesn't mean I've had people, you know, knocking down my door trying to get my autograph. Like, very little of that has happened. I have signed a few autographs, but it's like I probably count them on both hands and toes how many I've signed. Both hands and both feet, sorry. But what I have done is like, I haven't quit. Well, what I want to say is I never quit forever. Because I think this is a huge part. I'm going to switch arms again because now my left arm's getting tired. I think this is really important. I have quit. I have never made a pronouncement to the world like I'm done with music, and maybe quit isn't the right word, but I've put my guitar away and not touched it for like 3 months at a time sometimes. I've definitely done things where I've resisted playing my music for people, writing new music, getting out of my own way. I've been very susceptible to, I have ADD, and I'm very susceptible to like Netflix type stuff, YouTube, Facebook, just surfing, And so there's been a lot of times in my life where I've been super, like I've just been kind of tired, working a lot or not working a lot, as the case may be, and I'll go and watch Netflix way too much, and I'll watch YouTube way too much. I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with Netflix and YouTube. I think there's a miraculous bunch of amazing content being produced, but like I would sit there and binge watch stuff and not even be conscious that I was doing it as a way of avoiding being creative, as a way of avoiding being myself. Now, if most people who know me just sort of see that since 2004, when I started Victor Bravo, my first band, like it just looks to them probably like I've just been a musician like the whole time, and they just imagine that every day I've had free time, I'm like sitting down with my guitar, writing songs, doing stuff for the band. And that's more or less the case today, but it was definitely the case from, I would say, 2004 to 2010, which was when I was in my bands Victor Bravo and then my second band Atomic Shotgun. Those era, I was very like active all the time. But for a lot of the intervening years from 2010 until we formed Red Treasure, especially in 2015, I had a lot of times where I was not making music. I was not doing much at all creative on certain days or certain weeks or certain months. And so I think it's important for me to share that, because I think we have this thing of like that real artists like never quit, Like I'm a big believer in those sayings, like don't ever give up, just don't ever give up. But I think the more important thing is don't ever give up for good. Don't ever say to yourself, if you love making music, if you love acting, if you love making films, if you love painting, if you love making quilts, if you love, coming up with new recipes, like if you have that creative desire, what happens so much is that so many of us, I don't know if people can relate watching this, but we come out of our childhoods for whatever reason with not a huge amount of belief in ourselves and our abilities and our talents. We're kind of feeling not so good about ourselves. And then we get out into the adult world and we just start comparing ourselves. And the media does this all the time. We're always charting like who's number one and who's number two. And I think it just becomes this thing where we get scared to do the thing we love because we don't want to be judged as a failure, as less than, as somebody who tried to do something and then failed. But then the problem becomes that I think a lot of people they either just, the moment they hit the adult world, even if they loved playing the flute all the way up through high school, they just quit because they're just like, well, I'm not going to make any money playing the flute. I'm not going to be in the New York Philharmonic playing flute. I'm not gonna, there's not enough jobs in the world for flautist. And yes, that is the word for somebody who plays the flute. There's not enough flautist money in the world. And if I keep playing the flute, people are just gonna keep asking me, well, what are you gonna do with it? What's your plan? Are you are you trying to join an orchestra? Like, are you trying to be the flute player in like a Men at Work cover band or Jethro Tull cover band? Or nope, that's the only number of bands I know that actually have a flautist, but as a regular member. But and they just don't want those questions. They don't want those like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so they make this decision, which I've heard it in so many conversations where they give it up for good. And maybe at the time they don't think it's for good. They just think like for now, like until further notice, I'm not going to play the flute. And maybe in the back of their mind they're saying, well, maybe someday when I have free time, I'll come back to it. And the problem is sometimes they make that sort of, I'm just quitting it for good for now, which sounds sort of contradictory, but I think that's what it ends up being. And it becomes forever. They never get back to it. They never pick up the flute again. they get into their old age and they remember it, and they start telling their grandkids and their kids, like, man, I stopped playing the flute, and I don't even remember exactly why. Because as you get older, I'm not super old, but I'm old enough, and I have friends that are far older than me who are very wise and share their wisdom with me. The older we get, we tend to realize that the stuff we worried about when we were younger was bullshit, and we let stuff stop us because we were afraid of the results, or not getting the result we want, or what people would think or whatever. And then as you get older, you're like, screw that, it doesn't matter, we're all gonna die, so I'm just gonna do what I want. So the key is to give us access to do that when we're little kids, and never lose it, never lose just doing what we really love. So what I realized is, so I think so many people do that, and so some people just get to they just graduate high school or they graduate college, and they're like, I'm never gonna do that creative thing again, ever. I'm not gonna join a band, I'm not gonna audition, I'm not gonna move to New York or LA, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to go get a job doing something that's stable, which there's nothing wrong with that. I am such a proponent of financial stability, especially for artists, and that's a whole other series of YouTube videos, but it's like this thing in our minds where I'm gonna choose financial stability instead of my art. I'm gonna choose a job where people aren't gonna judge me versus pursue an interest in music or acting or whatever where people are gonna judge me, and I'm gonna be safe. I'll have money, people won't judge me, so I'll be safe. And so that's one thing that people do. I think some people just get to adulthood and just abandon their creativity, and they bury a dream is what they do. I'm thinking maybe the name of this video is dig up your dreams, or don't bury your dream, because there's so many people with buried dreams in the world. It's stunning. It's like a pandemic in America. I don't know much about other countries, but if you're from another country watching this, comment and tell me, because I just don't know. I haven't traveled enough. But I know in America, it's a pandemic. People bury their dreams. They bury their dreams, and it's insane. We have all these messages out in the world, especially with social media. Live your dreams, follow your dreams. But then we're not telling people how. And I understand the first thing is just to give people the introductory permission, follow your dreams. I'm using that hashtag constantly on Instagram because I just want to spread it. Follow your dreams. It's not bullshit. Follow it. Follow your dreams. The things you want to do, follow them. Get rid of those bullshit excuses, which is easier said than done. I understand, but I do feel like we're not teaching, people are scared of being judged if they're in art, and we're not teaching anyone how to deal with that fear. We're not teaching anybody that fear is most likely based on bullshit. It's based on chasing other people's opinions, some artificial construct of success, some deadline you really got from your dad or your mom or your teacher, and you just think it's you saying, well, if I move to New York and I try to audition and I don't make, I don't have my own TV show in 5 years, I'm gonna pack it up and I'm gonna move back home and I'm gonna get a job that's stable but that I hate. So anyway, so one aspect of that, this is gonna be a long video. Not too long, hopefully I can keep it under 30. So one thing is some people just get to adulthood and just abandon creativity. They just abandon art, even if they love it. Another thing that happens is some people pursue it, and this is what kind of, I think, came out on the podcast last night on episode 8 or 9. Some people pursue their art. They join a band, they paint for a while, and they love it, and they find something so on episode 8 of the podcast, you'll hear about this band called Dear Silence, and it was these 5 people that gradually met each other through friends and circumstance and Craigslist ads and everything else. And when the 5 of them got together, they were magic. They were magic. They were a band that you go see and you go, wow, those people are so great. That band is so great. They're writing such great songs. They seem like they like each other. They're having fun up there. I can't wait to see them again. It's that kind of magic. And once you feel that as an artist, I think most artists watching this will get it. If you're a painter and you think of the most fun you ever had painting, the painting you did that you just had the most fun doing, or if you're in a rock band, or the most fun song you ever wrote, the first time you really enjoyed playing it for other people. If you're a rapper, the first set of rhymes you have that you knew you were killing it, and you did it for your friends, and they were like, oh my God, you're killing it. It's just this natural high. It's better than any freaking drug. It's better than alcohol. It's maybe in the same ballpark as sex. I don't know. But it's just you just can't get it any other way. When you create something and it feels good to you that you did it, you love that you did it, There's just nothing like that. So some people, they do pursue their art after high school, after college, whatever, but then they have, it's almost like I should come up with a name for it, like it's some sort of like debilitating experience. One friend of mine in New York, a musician friend of mine, he was in a band and they were told one night that I think it was that the A&R person for the record label for a band that was probably the most famous band in the world in their genre at that time was gonna come to the show. And so they all got super nervous, but they played an amazing killer show. Like they played a killer show. By the end of it, they were like, oh my God, like the A&R guy from the record label was here. Sorry, gotta switch arms again. Oh, I really need a tripod. Hashtag I need a tripod. And so this A&R guy was supposed to come. They played their hearts out. They were like, yes. And then they got off stage and their friend came up to them and said, oh, that guy never showed up. And honestly, this is a judgment on my part, but the way I heard that story, I really feel like this was the truth of it, was that was the death of that band. Because it was like this debilitating experience. I gotta come up with another name. Defeating experience, or like, you know, it's just this crushing blow. And from that point forward, it became this, as I heard it, this is all my interpretation, but as I heard it, it was, for the rest of that band's existence, it fell apart after that, and for the rest of that band's existence, they viewed that as like, that was our one shot at massive success. It didn't work out, and so it's over. And it's not just like that band was a bunch of quitters, because I don't think there was a single like traditional quitter in that band, because they wouldn't have been a rock band in New York City for years if they were a bunch of quitters. What happened to them is they had one of these debilitating, crushing, defeating events. You're yearning as an artist so much just to share your stuff with an audience and just get more of an audience, you know? We're human. We kind of have this bottomless pit of need sometimes. It's like if you're playing for 10 people, you want to play for 20. If you're playing for 20, you're like, well, how about 100? You play for 100, you're like, well, we can play for 1,000. You play for 1,000, you want to play Madison Square Garden. You know, you play Madison Square Garden, you want to play Wembley Stadium. You know, it's just like it's endless. So, I mean, I feel like that's human. Part of that is human. And so really they just, you know, they had this, what they thought was this, it got built up as this opportunity to play for an A&R guy at a major label, their kind of music. He was going to love them. They were going to get on a label. They were going to tour. They were going to be famous. And then the news that guy never showed up was just crushing to them. And it just killed it. You know what I mean? And the rest of it was just like the details, you know? And I'm sure if I asked them, sorry, I gotta switch arms again. I'm sure if I asked them, you know, they would come up with a whole bunch of, you know, well, so-and-so got married and then so-and-so felt like they wanted to go in a different artistic direction. But I would just go to Vegas and put money down that event was what really ultimately made that band no longer exist. So one thing there is to unpack is that don't let those debilitating events stop you from doing what you love. As artists, I think we blow them out of proportion, way out of proportion, you know? And I'm not saying like if you really feel like you have to make money from your band and then you had an opportunity like that could have brought in a lot of money and then it doesn't work out. I get that. Again, I'm not telling anybody to like go broke just playing for nobody or painting paintings for nobody. I think if you're talented, and I feel like most people have an amazing talent inside them, you deserve to make money from it as much as anybody else. But there's just, life is more complicated than one single incident, you know? And as we were talking last night on the podcast, some people think that like they're at the beach and like a wave that comes in is like their wave. And if they're not at the, I'm mixing up the metaphor. Sorry, this was Mike's and it was a surfing metaphor. So if you're surfing, you're not on the beach, you're on the water and you're waiting for your wave to come in, and your wave comes in and you try to look around and you're gonna surf it, but at the last second, it doesn't work out, you don't go. So you don't surf that wave and that wave goes away. So many people feel like they only have one wave, or they had, you know, or their wave is never gonna come, or they had their wave, like in that example, and they didn't surf it well. Or they surfed it and they crashed and burned, they you know, flopped into the ocean and were not awesome, looked ridiculous, and that's the only wave they could have ever ridden. And I'm like, but life and art is infinite. It's abundant. It's like, I mean, yes, we're all gonna die, and there's only 24 hours in a day, but human life just goes on. Like, we die, but other people live. You know, the sun goes down, but then it comes up tomorrow. You know, you might have had a great creative idea. It didn't work out. If you're just open as an artist, you'll have another one. Like, that's just how it works. Like, art isn't like some faucet that just gets turned off. Writer's block isn't creativity ending. Writer's block is us having some sort of block up here that blocks what is just an endless flow of ideas and things like that. So I just feel like there's the people that just like quit preemptively. They quit art preemptively coming out of high school or college, or they pursue their art and they love it and they have some sort of magical experience, and then they have a crushing event. And I think sometimes the crushing event can just be waking up one morning. And it's not one single thing. It's that you've been in LA for 5 years trying to make it as a screenwriter, and you haven't sold a script. And you haven't even had any bites on the line, you know? So it's not like one rejection letter. It's just like waking up in 5 years, you're not where you thought you should be or where you think you should be. And that awareness becomes the crushing event. And then you just say, screw it, I'm not writing screenplays anymore. Now that's different, and I want to be clear about this too. I'm not saying that people don't change and that people should do something forever. Like, if you were really great in your school play in 3rd grade, that means you should act your whole life and you should only act and you shouldn't do anything else. I am not saying that at all. I'm a big believer that people change, they shift, your interests shift. I've had my interests shift all the time. Throughout the course of my life. I mean, trying to pick a major in college was a nightmare. I switched my major, like, I don't even want to know, like, too many times, more than 10. You know, so I get that, but that's different. And that's why I say, like, don't give up what you love until you stop loving it. And I mean, genuinely stop loving it. Like, if you're God, I have to keep coming up with examples here. If you're a sculptor, right, you make sculptures, that's your thing. You love it. You love making sculptures. And you do it for 20 years. And you have a period of your life at the end of that 20 years where you're like, you know what? I have loved sculpture my whole life. I've been making it my whole life. I've loved what I've done. I haven't loved every single piece I've ever sculpted, but I love what I've done. And I really want to move on to other things. Like, I feel satisfied. I feel genuinely like I completed my mission kind of as a sculptor on this earth. And I really want to do something else. Like, I really want to write a book, or I really just want to go live in my lake house and just, you know, watch the sunset and write, you know, read poetry or something. I'm not necessarily creating art anymore. If that's really the truth, like you're genuinely happy about that, I bless that 100%. Don't sculpt. If it's not in your blood, if it's not something you really are burning to do, don't keep sculpting just because, you know, you sculpted for 20 years. Like, if you really want to do other things, that's fine. That's not what I'm talking about in this video though. What I'm talking about is I know so many people that try to convince me after I've seen them love being an actor, love being a rock musician, love being a rapper, love being a painter or a poet or anything, a filmmaker, anything. And then one day they try to convince me that they don't love it anymore. They're quitting and they're okay with it. They're quitting forever or for good. And they're completely at peace with it. And I think, and most of the time I think they're full of shit. And I'm sorry to use that language, but I just think they're lying. They're lying to themselves and they're lying to me. And it's just that they got scared like anybody would, like I am. I'm not trying to ever portray myself on here like I'm not scared of things. I'm not scared of failure. I don't think about failure when I get up in front of people to play or when we go to the studio to make a record. I said one of the reasons, the other reason I'm making this video is for me. I want to keep relearning what I've learned from so many other brilliant people because I want it to be hardwired up here. I don't ever want to be the guy that sends an email to all my friends and goes, thank you for supporting Red Treasure. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it, but I've just decided that I'm not going to do art anymore. You know, I'm going to go get a job at something I hate doing and it's really financially stable and that's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Thank you all. Peace out. Because I could, if I don't keep learning this stuff that I'm talking about in this video and I'm going to keep talking about, if I don't keep learning that stuff, I will be that guy because I had the same stuff coming out of childhood. I didn't value myself. I didn't value my work. I didn't think I was talented. I didn't think I was any good at anything. And I have the fantasy all the time of quitting art forever. I absolutely do. And it's scary to say that out loud because I'm like, wow, what did I just reveal there? But it's true, and I just feel like I think a lot of people who want to make art aren't making art because they're scared of failing. I think a lot of people that are making art are in danger of quitting because they feel like a failure. They feel like they haven't made it. They're not famous. They're not rich. They're getting into their 30s and they want to have kids, and they just feel like it'd just be easier if I just let this artistic dream go and just got a job and bought a house. And I'm not putting, I think financial stability is key, not only wonderful, but key. I think owning a home that you love is great. I think having a car that you really love to drive in is a good thing. I don't put anything against that, but I just feel like it's just this either or mentality. It drives me crazy. People get into like, I have to give up my art and have a nice life where I get to have a house and a spouse and children, or I have to pursue my art and I'm just going to keep being a failure and I'm going to be miserable and I'm not going to have the house, I'm not going to have a nice car, and I'm not going to, my boyfriend / girlfriend will leave me, I'll never have kids. It just doesn't have to be either or. The only reason that we think it has to be either or is because we have this insane standard that's not about us. It's not about our lives. I swear to God, the most busiest single mom, and I know this is really bullshit of me to say this because I'm as far from being a single mom as I can possibly be. I've never been married. I've never had children. But I feel like I swear this is true. If there's a single mom out there who feels like, fuck you, Collin. Like, fuck you in this video because, I have to work. My deadbeat ex-husband is not paying the child support he's supposed to be paying. I'm paying for everything. My kid I love her with all my heart. I would do anything for her, but she's expensive just because she's a kid, not because she has expensive taste. Just like having a kid is expensive. I have to make rent, or I have to pay the mortgage. I have to see my mom, I have to, I'm religious and I go to a church or whatever and I need to participate there. And when I get home, Collin, I am tired and I don't have it in me to write a poem. So fuck you for saying this to me. Fuck you for saying it's possible. And I'm just here to say, I get it. Tell me to fuck off as much as you want, and I mean that. I'm not taking any offense. But what I'm not telling you to do is go be Beyonce tomorrow. I'm not telling you to join a band and devote 6 hours a week to rehearsal. I'm not telling you to make a record. I'm not telling you to get your paintings hanging in a gallery. I'm not telling you to do anything other than just listen to your heart and let yourself find a way, some small, tiny way to do the thing you love. And if it's literally like as you're going to bed in that example and you want to write, and if you really get quiet with yourself right before you're going to sleep, you actually have that creative impulse and you want to write 2 sentences of poetry, or 2 lines, of poetry about how you're exhausted and you wish you had more energy for your art, but you love your daughter so much and it's worth it. And you just want to write those 2 lines. Let yourself write those 2 lines and don't worry about anything after that. Just do it. Because I just feel like you were born to have that daughter, to take care of her, to raise her as this wonderful human being that's going to do all these miraculous things in the world, but you were also here to write those 2 lines of poetry. And I don't know the result that's supposed to come from it. Maybe you're supposed to put it in a drawer and forget it, and 20 years from now, your daughter finds those 2 lines and weeps with love from you. And that is the power of art. We tend to think that the only power of art is like playing Madison Square Garden, being in some really fancy New York gallery, whatever, having your film be the #1 in the box office globally, put out by a major studio. But that story I just told you, did your heart not move? Like a daughter 20 years later finding 2 lines of poetry written by her mom about how she's exhausted. She loved to write poetry before she had her daughter. She wishes she could write more, but it's all worth it because she loves her daughter so much. She would do anything for her. Like, can you imagine being the daughter reading those 2 lines? That's art, man. You don't need Madison Square Garden when you have that. But if you tell yourself, I don't mean to pick on single moms, just an example. But if you tell yourself, other people's job is writing poetry, my job is to just go to sleep without honoring this impulse, those 2 lines will never happen. They'll never get put down on paper, and your daughter will never read them. And that moment that she has of being moved by art, moved by the brilliant art that was in her mother 20 years ago when she was a small girl, that moment will never happen. And I think that's what people just don't get. You know, like my friend who was, you know, in that band where the A&R guy was supposed to come and he never came. You know, what kills me about that story is they played a killer show. If you really look at the results, like on a human level, they played a killer show. There were 100, 200 people there. I don't remember how many there were, 80, I think maybe is what he said. There were 80 people there in New York City on a night where they wanted to see a rock band. Some of them loved them already. Some of them had never heard them. Most of the people that went had a blast. You know, the 4 or 5 people in the band did what they were put on this earth to do. They released their art into the world. They killed it. They shared the thing that only those 4 or 5 people could have made. That band will never be exactly that band again ever in the whole history of time in the universe. And so it's the thing that's tragic about that story to me is like, what a magical night. If we're looking at that with the right perspective, that night is magical. It's not a failure. It's not a reason to stop. If one of the members had to get married and move to Idaho and that broke up the band later, fine. But that A&R guy not showing up didn't have to be the end. Maybe the end would have naturally come a week later. But the actual end, in my opinion, was artificially created. And I'm not criticizing anybody in that band, by the way, because I've been there. I've been those guys. We had this experience one time, my first band in Victor Bravo. I will never forget this. It hurt so bad. So there's 2 venues in New York City that have similar names, or they at least did back in 2008 when we were a thing. One is called the Bowery Ballroom, and one is called the Bowery Electric. And they're both great places. The Bowery Electric, at the time we were a band, was a small, really cool club, pretty new, but pretty small. You know, capacity was probably maximum 50 or 60 people. Most people were playing there to 20 or 30 people a night. Now the Bowery Ballroom was a much larger venue. I think its capacity is somewhere 700, 800, 1,000, something like that. And major national acts, not the big, you know, the Beyoncés or the Journeys or whatever, but like, you know, a lot of really famous indie rock bands, you know, who had large followings would play the Bowery Ballroom. And so it was a real honor. Like if you've ever played the Bowery Ballroom, if we're going to use Make It, I mean, you've made it, you know. I feel like every band that's ever played there has made it, because you don't play there unless you're really good in somebody's view and you have a really loyal fan base, you know. So we did a show at a place called Otto's Shrunken Head, which was one of my favorite places to play still to this day. Small club, like we really loved it. And this guy happened to be there, and he was a booker, and he loved the show, and he came up to us and he said, "How would you guys love to play the Bowery Ballroom?" And I think you know where this is going, based on how I set it up, but we were like, yeah, absolutely. And he gave us the date, and we were like, oh my God. And we went, and those were the MySpace days, and we put it on MySpace, and we told our friends, and like everybody's like, oh my God, you're playing the Bowery Ballroom? That's amazing. And then like a week later, the booker guy saw our post on MySpace and like went off on us. He wrote us this message, this angry message, like, why are you telling people you're playing the Bowery Ballroom? You're playing the Bowery Electric. I didn't say the Bowery Ballroom. He completely said the Bowery Ballroom. I don't think it was intentional at all. I think he it was in his head and he messed up, you know, but because he absolutely said the Bowery Ballroom. And we were like, oh, okay, our apologies. I guess we misheard you. But I mean, I remember going through that with my bandmate at the time, and that was one of those like massively defeating. It felt like one of those awful things. One of those massively defeating, like, this is a reason to hang it up. You know, this is a reason to quit. Like, we've been doing that. We had been playing for a while. We've been playing for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years at that point. Played all kinds of shows, toured, everything. And it was like that. We thought we had our first major big break and we were going to make it. And it was like, It's that thing we thought was there is not there at all. It's not there at all. It was never there. You guys were never, you know, like the judgment in our heads was like, you guys were never good enough to play the Bowery Ballroom. What were you thinking, you know? And the good news is that that band didn't let that stop us. And as I was saying to Mike off microphone between segments last night and the podcast, you know, the only reason I'm still a rock star is because I just didn't quit. I just haven't quit. And like, nobody's telling me to quit. I have a voice in my head that's telling me to quit. I have a voice in my head that's saying, you're 48 years old, dude. Like, hello. You know, like, what are you doing? 48-year-olds do not start rock bands. They don't start rock bands playing for 10 people or 12 people or 20 people. Like, if you're 48 and you're a rock star, you should be playing the Greek Theater or the Staples Center. Otherwise, you should quit. But that's a voice in my head. That no one is saying that. On Instagram, everybody's like, hey, you guys are cool, you know? On YouTube, people are like, oh, I like your videos. Like, people, oh, Only Human, that's a cool song. Nobody's telling me, you know, dude, you're old, give it up. Now, some people might be thinking that, but I would guess, and I would put money down, that's just, like, that every person that's thinking, like, what does he think he's doing, being 48 years old, being in a rock band? I mean, I just think that's people who probably gave up, who probably buried a dream. They buried a dream. And it might not have been a rock band dream. It might have been they wanted to be an actor or something else, but they buried it. And then they see me at 48 years old and like, what the hell is your problem? Like, why didn't you get the memo that I got? You know, I wasn't successful at 28 or 30, so I quit. And that's what you're supposed to do. Why are you still going at 48? And I'm like, because I fucking love it. And there's people, you know, our fan base is, you know, it's so funny how in this culture, so I blew the 30 minutes. It's so funny how in this culture, the way we use, I've really keyed into this lately, how we use terms of measurement, you know. Like I just used the word expensive, and I hate the word expensive because it's a judgment. Like if you're a billionaire and there's a Rolls Royce that you want to buy and you really love it, you appreciate the engineering, you appreciate the style, and you really love it, the price of a Rolls Royce is not expensive to you. You know, if you have the money and it's a valuable purchase to you, expensive usually means it's something I want and I can't afford it. And I'm pissed. Like that's usually when we say expensive, it's like that shouldn't be that high because I want it and I just don't have the money for it. I would have to borrow money or do something to buy that thing, and I shouldn't have to. But it's like, usually the market sets the rate, you know, like people charge what they can get. Like nobody puts a product out, charges twice as much as they can get, and never sell a product and then shut down. Those businesses don't last very long, you know? So what I was about to say is our fan base is small, which is a judgment on my part because I'm comparing it to like, I keep bringing it up, you know, Beyonce, Van Halen, you know, Led Zeppelin, whoever, Green Day, Nirvana. Like I'm comparing our fan base, which right now I would say, if being completely honest, it's around, the total is probably around 250 people globally. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but it's around 250 people. And like, you're not supposed to say that, right? Like even if that's the truth, what I'm supposed to get on here in the old world that everybody lived in, I'm supposed to go on and act like, this is what we did in Victor Bravo, my old band. It's like, we're supposed to act like we have a fan base of like 1,000 people. So that people who aren't fans of us will be tricked by that, will be manipulated by that, and be like, oh, well, if 1,000 people like them, I guess I can like them, and then we'll actually get to 1,000 by lying about the fact that we, you know, not saying it directly, but trying to convince you that we have 1,000 fans. What I've come to realize is the 200 to 300 fans we have are so amazing. Like they're so amazing. They spend time following us on Instagram, on YouTube. I mean, these people have families, they have jobs, they have things to do. A lot of them live in the East Coast where it snows all the time and they have to shovel their driveway. And then they come in and they watch like a YouTube video that Gabe and I made, you know, and it's like they take their time. It's precious. You know, life is precious. So, I mean, when I say, oh, our fan base is small, I think the truth is our fan base is huge. I think if you have 200 to 300 people in this world, and I'm not trying to brag here, I think if you have 200 to 300 people in this world who will give some time to listen to your creation, your art, the stuff you made that's uniquely yours and no one else can ever do it ever, and they give you some appreciation back by whatever, comment on Facebook, you know, following you on Instagram, or just like a little email like, hey, I listened to your song, it was really cool, keep going, guys. Like, that's huge. I think our fan base is actually huge. You know, it's just not huge when you compare it to Nirvana and Green Day and Beyonce, and, you know, like it. But if we all just keep using that standard, we're just gonna be miserable, man. Because we're either gonna not do our art, or we're going to do our art and let one of those crushing experiences, which absolutely are gonna happen. Because it's really just life. We're making it into this crushing experience in my book, but we're just gonna be not happy. So I think, so to bring this all the way back around and try to keep this under an hour, which I probably also won't do, you know, the epiphany I had this morning is like, well, I haven't made it, you know. I'm not famous. I'm not playing the Staples Center next week. So what platform do I have to say, follow your dreams, you know, like, you know, sleep on your cousin's floor for free rent so that you can be in a band or whatever, which is not really what I'm saying, but, and then this morning I realized, like, I've been a rock star since 2004, so for 15 years. And it's been all sorts of different forms. I was in Victor Bravo, I was in Atomic Shotgun, I was sort of solo. I did this live web streaming show back before anybody knew streaming was a thing, called Live from the Basement. I did 22 episodes of that show, just me playing to the camera and interacting with the fans online. When I moved to San Diego, I just played open mics constantly. When I moved to LA, before I met Gabe and hooked up with the band, I did another season of Live from the Basement. It wasn't the basement, it was the living room, because there's no basements in Los Angeles, but it was Live from the Basement season 2. I made 22 episodes of that show, just me playing music, you know, and then I found Gabe, and we've done the band, and we're gonna release our second record this summer and all this stuff. So it's just like, all I did was not quit in my book. Like, all I did was like not give into that fear that somebody's gonna judge me as a failure, which I have. I'm not trying to separate myself from anyone watching this. I have that fear. Every time we do a show, every time I promote something online, it flashes through my head. What if nobody, and it's not really like, what if somebody hates this? Like, what if we get a hater? A hater would also almost be like, great at this point, because it's like somebody cares enough to like watch the whole video and like then be like, this, you guys suck, you know, the guitar, you know, that you're playing in the bridge is, you know, dumb and whatever. And I'm like, wow, he listened all the way to the bridge. Score, win, you know. But yeah, I mean, but the worst thing I'm afraid of is nobody caring. You know, putting up a post on Instagram and like no likes, you know, or like 6 likes, and it's like, you know, people I know like everything that I do, you know, and like nobody else cares. You know, like, oh my God, I wrote a song and I put it online and nobody cares. And it's like, what's the worst thing about that? It's like, I got to do something I love. I shared it with the world. I've never had anything get no likes. I've never had anything get no views. I've never had anything get, you know, I've never had an account and have nobody follow me or nobody friend me. You know, so it's like the worst thing is like, I get to do something I love. I share it with a handful of people at worst, and a handful of people appreciate it. It lightens up their day, makes them feel good. You know, so anyway, so that's the thing. I think one of my missions is that I'm not the guy that overcame all his today. I'm not the guy that overcame all his self-sabotage and fears and the music business and all the obstacles and everything. And I became a huge superstar. And now if you do what I did, you can become a superstar like me. I'm the guy that just never stopped doing what I love. And one of my jobs is to tell people, don't stop doing what you love. I care about what you love. And I want to support you doing it. And I want to hear about it. I want you to tell me about it. If you're doing something, if you're living a dream, if you're doing a dream, I want to know. Like, put it in the comments of anything, of any post I ever do. Because I check all the comments. I don't always check them right away. Sometimes I can't, I'm too busy, but I try to check all of them at some point. And if you ever comment and say, I'm living my dream of, you know, I want to become, you know, a backup singer for major, you know, maybe that's really what you want to do. You want to be a backup singer for famous people who sing. And I need support, you know. I'm going to read that comment. I'm going to comment back. Like, I support you 100%. Go for it. Keep going. because I think that's part of my mission in this world, is to help people who, so there's sort of two buckets of people. One is people that just buried a dream and just never lived it, and they need help and support to start living it. One tiny piece of it first. Like I said, the 2 lines of poetry before you fall asleep. So that's one group of people. The other group of people is people that are either, well, maybe there's 3 groups. Okay, so group number 1 is people that buried the dream, never followed it. Group number 2 is people that are following their dream, but they're feeling very rickety. Like they're having that thought all the time. Should I quit? Should I just quit for good? Should I just move back home? Should I just get a regular job that I'm gonna hate, but it'll be stable, and there just won't be as much day-to-day risk, and I won't be stressed out all the time. So for those people, I want to help you keep going. If you still love it, if you still genuinely love it, you're not talking yourself into, well, I don't think I love it, because you're really you do love it, but you're just scared and terrified of judgment, of being seen as a failure, whatever. So that's bucket number 2, people that are following a dream, but they feel rickety. They feel like shaky, like I might quit. And then the third bucket is people that lived a dream. And that's how I'm gonna phrase it, man. I'm not saying like you followed a dream and it didn't happen, because if you were in a rock band for 2 years, I don't care how many people you played for, you lived your dream. You lived your dream. There isn't a band in the world that, like, I don't think ever play, you're always at least playing for like the bartender and the door guy. So you had an audience. Maybe they weren't super attentive, but maybe they were cleaning glassware while they listened to you. But, so the third bucket is people that lived a dream and then abandoned it and buried it, which is usually, in many cases, because of one of those crushing experiences I talked about. So anyway, so that's my spiel. That's my rant today. I did not keep it. Oh, I did. It's 51 minutes. All right. I kept it under an hour. If you listen this long, thank you so much. And I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in you, even though I don't know you. I may know you. A lot of people that watch this in the beginning are going to be people I know. But I believe in everybody I know. But I believe in everybody I don't know, because I believe in the human spirit. And that may sound like some bullshit cliche, but I don't think it is. I think everybody was put on this planet with desires to do great things. And sometimes those great things are for one person or for 2 people or for a week. They're not a lifelong journey, but I just feel like I don't want to control anybody. I don't want to push anybody. I don't want to force anybody. I don't want to guilt anybody. I don't want to shame anybody into anything. It's just that if you resonate with this and you need support, I want to give it to you. I want part of the mission of Red Treasure, me and Gabe, to be like, we're living our dream. We understand how privileged we are and how lucky we are. We do a lot of work and we deserve credit for that, but we're also super lucky. To have the tools, to have the ability to do what we do, and to have so many people support us. So I feel like our job is to give back. And I think the way this morning I was like, we're gonna give back by supporting other people's dreams. And we're not gonna give up our dream. I'm not gonna turn this into a self-help operation. This operation is Red Treasure. This operation is the band. This operation is Gabriel and I sharing our art with as many people as possible, and not having the sky be the limit. Like, we still want to get rich and famous, and we're gonna always want to be rich and famous, but we're never gonna let the fact that we're not as rich and famous as we think we should be, or someone else thinks we should be, stop us. We're just not gonna let it stop us. End of story. I really want to know people's reactions to this video. I want this to be a dialogue. I'm scared of the dialogue. I don't know what the dialogue is going to be. I feel like that's kind of scary, but I want to start having it, because I think it's time to end this pandemic. It's time to let people know that if you have an artistic, creative impulse, you deserve the ability to just be able to express it without having to be afraid that you're going to be judged, that people are going to make fun of you, that people are going to think you're a failure, you're a fool, you're full of yourself, any of that crap. You deserve to do things you love. Life is hard. I understand. We all have to do stuff we don't want to do. I got to take out the garbage today. I don't want to do that. But I also deserve, as a human being on this earth, to be able to do something that I love to do. So it's a right, not a privilege. And so that's that. Thanks for watching, and comment if you want to.